Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Paulding County Planning Commission, the August session. At this time, if you have an audible device, anything that makes a noise, please turn it off or to silence so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings. We will begin with a review of the minutes from the previous session of this body, and at the time I will ask Planning Commission, have you had a chance to review the minutes from the previous session? If you have any questions, comments, or requested edits? If not, I will entertain a motion with regard to those minutes from July 25, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Aston, second from Mr. Wicks. All in favor? And all opposed? And you have an abstention?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was here last night.
All right. Still need to decide. So motion passes 5, 0, and 2. Okay, the Paulding County Planning Commission is a recommending body. We will hear the applications that are brought before us today. Listen to the applicant and anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of the application, that is the applicant and anybody for the application, gets 15 minutes total time to speak. Anybody in opposition to the application or may have questions, comments, or concerns will also have a 15-minute total time to speak. I would ask that you be mindful of anybody standing in line behind you so that you can share that time with them. Both items on the agenda for consideration. One is a new item, which is actually item number 3. And then also the tabled item from the July 25th meeting will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners for their consideration. What date?
September 12th.
On
2
September
o'clock.
12th at 2 o'clock. So, and the applicant in both instances would have to be present for it to be considered there as well. So at this time, I will ask anybody speaking on behalf of any application or against any application, all your comments need to be directed to me, the chair, not back and forth to the audience or anyone else. So at this time, Mr. Robinson, would you introduce our first item?
Yes, sir. The first application is actually old business. This is an application that was tabled last month by the Planning Commission. It's application 2023-15Z, application by lead engineering requesting to rezone 2 parcels totaling 9.265 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District to B2 Highway Business District. It's to develop a convenience store with fuel pumps. Property is located in land lot 980, District 3, Section 3. It's on the northwest corner of Fry Road and Dallas-Ackworth Highway. The site address is 6467 and 6525 Dallas-Ackworth Highway. It's in Commission Post 4. Staff has recommended approval with 8 stipulations. Those stipulations have been amended after meetings and discussion with the Paulding DOT regarding the project that's going on at Fry Road and Mount Tabor and this development. We have had a tremendous amount of opposition and concern on this application from the citizens in that area. We provided the prior information that we received last month, plus you also have additional copies of what's been submitted actually pretty much through today is in your backup material. There's also, and I think they may have additional information they may hand out for this application.
So at this point, the item from last month was tabled pending a vote so that the applicant could get with the Department of Transportation for Paulding County and any other needed agency within the county to discuss the stipulations or proposed amendments. At this point, does the commission have any questions to staff?
I do. Since I tabled it, I have a question for the DOT director. Were you guys able to get together and work on some of the issues that were of concern with distance and several of the stipulations with like the 330 feet, et cetera.
Yes, the developer met with staff Thursday before last, and we were able to discuss some of that. Some of the items are basically, they're essentially addressed in the corridor overlay district, which Dallas-Ackworth Highway is included in. So again, even if it wasn't a stipulation, it's addressed in there regarding intersection spacing, area of influence, site distance, et cetera.
Okay. And then question also for
The applicant,
applicant.
you can ask questions of the applicant. We are not, at this point, looking to extend public comment or comment by the applicant. This is to address questions from the planning commission or the board of commissioners if they choose to engage.
Chairman, do I need to still sign in? And
I would, yes. Thank you.
yes. Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Jones, same question for the other Mr. Jones. You know, got together. You guys are okay with the 8 stipulations as stated now?
Yes, sir, and we would like to voluntarily add a zoning stipulation to increase the buffer against the residential from 40 feet to 100 feet. But we were able to get the plans from Paulding County DOT. We overlaid them, we modified the entrance locations. We mirrored it up with the rezoning application from across the street for that commercial area. And I think we've met the concerns slash issues as it relates to DOT traffic circulation and access.
All right, that's it for my questions.
Any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission?
I have one question, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
You're going for, this R2 zoning, B2 zoning. You've got 9 acres here and you're only gonna zone the whole 9 acres.
Yes, sir.
And only use part of it.
Yes, sir.
And you're agreeing to coming back forward, planning and zoning
Yes, sir.
for any other permission to use that property. Why are you gonna pay taxes on that whole time and not,
It's a very valid, good question. The people that's owned this land have owned it since the 1940s, and their policy is to sell all or nothing. And so, as how it was presented, that's how it's contracted, and that's the only option that family would allow. My client is more than amenable to come back before both you guys and the Board of Commissioners for whatever approval may or may not come in the future for that parcel. Currently, there's no anticipated developing of that parcel. There's no one, in discussions or whatnot. So it'll likely remain vacant for a year or so, no matter what. But yeah, the policy is all or nothing.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
This, I got one more question.
Yes, sir.
On this particular access, the main access on 381.
Yes, sir.
So I'm assuming you guys designed that to account for that additional 8 acres for anything that you develop in there.
Yes, sir. It's built with the commercial standards meeting Paulding County requirements, which is quite honestly, about the same as GDOT standards.
Okay.
Spacing is agreed upon, I think, based on the construction plans we were provided. The actual plan you see there is what that road will look like when it is fully completed, based on the approved plans that are currently under construction out there on site.
Okay, and that's in with the current road project.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that when that road project's completed, that's what that road system will look
Okay.
like, as
All right.
identical to that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission?
Yes, during this time period, if this was approved,
Yes, sir.
when would you start construction after you went through all the plan review, and how would it coordinate with what's being done on that intersection?
Yes, sir. That's a very good question. The timeline, if approved, would be middle of September. It would likely take us no less than the remainder of the year to secure approval permitting wise. So the earliest that the site construction could start would be the first of the year. And I think, and Mr. Jones can probably attain to the fact, but I think it's supposed to be finished the first part of the year. So our construction activity would likely start up the time that road system would be nearing completion. Weather permitting, I know we're going into some wet months come November, December, and it may stall the project, but that would be the intent, is to probably start construction first part of the year and facility probably wouldn't be open until summer of 2024. Yes, sir.
Any other questions to the applicant?
I have one further.
Yes, sir.
Our Mr. Jones,
Okay.
is DOT planning to put a red light in this intersection?
Essentially, if it's warranted, it's set up for a traffic signal, there's conduit that we put in place. So it does meet the warrants at this point in time. It's not part of the construction that's basically set up. But again, if it does meet the warrants, it'll be able to be put in place with a minimum of destruction, of obstruction, essentially having to dig up the road.
I know this is a high accident intersection. There was one there this past week. And that's one of the reasons I was asking.
Any further questions from the planning commission? Board of Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, George, could you repeat that? Because I couldn't really understand what you had said. I don't know. People in the back can't either on the red light deal.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Essentially, the intersection, as right now with the construction plans, it does not have a traffic signal. It's not warranted at this time. However, with the construction, we're actually putting in conduit in the ground going to all four corners. So when it does meet the warrants for a traffic signal, we do have the ability to install it without basically digging up the world, digging up the asphalt. So I'm trying to make it as plug and play as easy as possible if it does meet that warrant.
So,
How often do you reconsider the warrants for a particular intersection?
Again, it depends probably on traffic growth, things like that, but usually it's a minimum of 1 year.
well, as soon as that's open, could we go ahead and line up a traffic study just to make sure that, to see where we're at before something does maybe happen?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in theory, with the actually aligning the intersections where they come across from each other so they're not dog-legged, and with the shaving down of the hill to meet sight distance, it should improve conditions, but absolutely, we can initiate a warrant study.
And Jonathan, I couldn't hear you either. I think Keith was being loud and I couldn't hear, with my hearing going bad, but what did you say about a buffer?
So the rear buffer is required by zoning to be 40 foot. My client wishes to increase that to a 100-foot buffer, which I think is, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the largest buffers that Paulding County has for any zoning district, including heavy industrial. That's just to try to safeguard the residential community and, you know, eliminate, reduce concerns about the proximity to the residential people. The traffic study, I think, is something that's a zoning stipulation we have to do. So we would have to provide that. It would acknowledge, if approved, it would acknowledge our traffic flow based on their improvements. So we would essentially be doing that traffic study. And I'm sure Mr. Jones could dictate exactly what he wanted to see in that so that it met county needs if approved.
Mr. Robinson, is that a planted or an undisturbed buffer that would be required along that area?
Just depending on the site, if it's already a full growth or a natural buffer, we would, in the review process, and it's required in our ordinance that they would put tape out there to save the trees. And that would be the first approach, is to not touch anything, just leave 100 feet natural. If it's devoid of trees in some areas, we would work through the plan review process to identify those areas for additional planting.
We were at the Board of Commissioners. Were there any other questions to the applicant or staff? Planning Commission? So is there any other input that Planning Commission wishes to seek at this time? Then at this time, I will entertain a vote with regard to application 2023-15-Z. Please keep in mind that there are 8 stipulations amended from the previous session. They're listed on your packet now, and then there's a proposed 9th stipulation, which is to increase residential buffer along the back of the property from 40 feet against residential property to 100 feet. So if you wish to include that, you need to state that in your motion or whatever you decide to do with the motion.
I'll make a motion. Motion to approve with the 9 stipulations, the 8 stated and the 1 additional, increasing the rear buffer from 40 feet to 100 feet for the property line adjoining the residential to the, I guess it's the north of the property.
Okay. I have a motion to approve from Mr. Steele with the 8 listed stipulations and the 9th stipulation addressing the buffer along the rear of the property against residential property, increasing from 40 feet to 100 feet. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Aston. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes 4, 2, and 1. Again, this will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners meeting on September 12th at 2 p.m. for their consideration. Applicant must be present for it to be considered. Anybody who has an interest should consider there as well. We have one more item on the agenda, but if anybody is wishing to leave at this point, they can do so. We will hold off continuing the rest of the meeting for a couple of minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
how was the vote? I want to make sure I have the vote correct on
We
4,
had
4 and 2.
4 proposing, with the motion being made by Mr. Steele, seconded by Mr. Aston. Mr. Steele, Mr. Henson, Mr. Aston, and Mr. Wicks voted in favor, with Ms. Fitzgerald and Mr. Leggett voting in opposition. I
Very
was the
good.
abstention because I wasn't necessary.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. All right. All right. Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. If everyone would please take their seats. Mr. Robinson?
Okay. Next application, 2023-11Z, application by Highlands Residential, requesting to rezone 23.1619 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District and B2 Highway Business District to R55 Active Adult Residential District, which is 21.3 acres, and B2 Highway Business District, which is 1.5 acres. This will be for a proposed commercial/retail development along the frontage of Charles Hardy Parkway, which is State Route 120, and a 105-unit independent living retirement community within the rear portion of the site. Property is located in land lots 145 and 152, District 19, Section 2, southeast side of Charles Hardy Parkway, east of Citizen Square Road. Project site addresses are 4036, 4068, 4070, and 4072 Charles Hardy Parkway. It's in Commission Post 1. The recommendation by staff is approval with 3 stipulations. And we have had some inquiries on this one from some citizens.
All right. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
If you please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
All right. My name is Dave Lawful. I'm with Highlands Residential, and I create communities where my mom would want to live. My mom's a 70-year-old widow, and after my dad died, she lived in her place for a little too long. Given my experience in real estate development, I wanted to create communities where she would like to live. And you know, we did that at Hardy Springs, and we really think we hit the nail on the head there. It was incredibly well received by the clientele, and at the end of the day, the residents were largely 70-year-old widows. It's of the 70 million baby boomers in this country, 40% of those live alone. So that's 28 million people living alone. The communities that we create help people transition from loneliness into a community where they're surrounded by people in a similar age and stage. The people that live with us are thrilled to join a community where they're surrounded by their friends. The community that we're looking at today is Hardy Trail, and even though it's technically 55 plus senior living, the reality is that the resident is almost certainly a 7-year-old widow. Think Golden Girls is kind of the target there. This community also has a 1.5 acre commercial outparcel that fronts almost the entirety of the frontage along 120, except for the entrance to get to the residential portion. The residential senior living portion is behind it, has two different home sites. One is a multi-story building, and the rest is cottages. Both of the parcels, by the way, they'll remain as commercial parcels for property tax purposes, and won't have, you know, school tax exemptions or anything of that nature. In the multi-story building, it's shown as a 2-story building with a leasing office in the front, clubhouse, and a basement, actually, that fronts a courtyard in the back. And then it transitions into the single-story cottages that make up the remainder of the community. We worked with your planning department and gotten feedback from them, from DOT, and we've talked to some of the neighbors as well. I've got a bit more of a presentation, but it's not here, which is fine. But the elevations in your package, I can hand those out. Here, let me keep one. So it's got a colored site plan on page 2. I apologize, some of the page numbers got cut off on some of the subsequent pages. But it's got some elevations starting on the 3rd page and the 4th, and so on. And you know, we've presented the elevations with the landscaping so that, because that's how we build it, and that's we're trying to create curb appeal, sidewalks on both sides of the street, homes with covered porches or balconies, and then in the last half of the package, those are photos from Hardy Springs, showing the streetscapes and the amenities, pickleball court, clubhouse. I think and one thing that's interesting to take note is we do have on-site management and maintenance, and that helps tremendously getting people together, coordinating activities, and that kind of thing. The multi-story building is sprinklered. I think that Mr. Robinson asked me that question earlier, so just want to convey that to you all, and I'm happy to address any other questions that you all may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
I have a couple. What is the width is what, 36 inches on your average stairwell for the emergency exits?
Turn them on.
Probably a good bit wider. than 36 inches, probably. Our typical stairwell kind of bay is 30 feet by 10 feet, so 30 feet deep by 10 feet. So the width of a stairwell would be a little bit less than 5 feet.
Would it
on the
be
side.
possible to have at least one stairwell central in the building to like 48 inch? When you've got a 300-pound person, you're trying to get them down the stairs in a stair chair, it's not real easy.
There-
What two firefighters having to do it is preferred to have four, and you can't get you can't get three people across in a standard stairwell to get them down like that when you're using the stair chair.
Yeah. So we do have an elevator in the, in the rear of the building and the front of the building. There is another stairwell currently, so there's two stairwells, one on each side. So, I mean, we could, look at planning for another one if that's something that's vitally
Even just
important.
one of the existing ones, make them a wider where it's easier to get the person out of the building, because
Yeah.
a standard elevator is almost impossible when you're doing CPR on a young or old person to continue CPR while you're trying to get them out of the building like that.
No, I think that's not a bad call. So, what width?
Usually 48, I think, is the commercial width that they use on, because you're gonna have your gurney, you're gonna have two people at either side of it, one at the head and one at the foot.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Well,
It's
you
probably
did
already
say your
set up that
stairwells
way.
were just under 5 feet though, right?
Correct, yeah. So that should be already there.
If they're under 5 foot width, that's fine, but
Yeah.
that's what you're looking at, the width of three people, because
Yeah.
a heavier person, it's hard to get them down
Yeah.
a standard stairwell.
Yeah, you're familiar with the 3 stipulations recommended by staff, and you're agreeable to those?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Wicks, you had a question?
Yeah, I wanted to, can you talk a little bit about the proposed commercial building? What are you anticipating from a commercial aspect inside of that building?
Yeah, right now we've got a limitation that we can't have auto repair, which I wouldn't want, to have that next to these homes. I think the category is, was it B2, I believe? My thought is, medical office or, something of that sort. I don't have a user teed up for it right now, so.
What about a restaurant? We don't have good restaurants in this county. We've got fast food, stuff like that. Most of the good restaurants have left. That will be a good place for somebody, this kind of development.
I mean, I'd love to
A
have that.
meat and 3 vegetables, they'd love it.
That's right. Something between your morning biscuit at Martin's and your
Hey,
late night
even a
waffle at
Martin's
Waffle
is
House.
better than a service station right now,
Yeah.
so.
You'd never get in because of the clientele living behind it.
Well, it might have to fight them for a seat.
Any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission?
Yeah, I have a question back to the multi-story building. So
Yes,
on your multi-story building, is it residents on every level, the first and second,
Yes.
separated, meaning one resident will live upstairs, one will
Yes.
live below? So
Yeah,
it's
they're-
not stairs connecting between
That's
the
correct.
units. The units are individual. So it's not technically fully assisted, but it's still private, more like an apartment.
Yeah,
Correct.
it'd be like, we refer to it as, senior living without the medical meals and maids. It's the typical resident is the 10 years before they go into, what's branded as independent living, which is oftentimes somewhat assisted in and of itself, but.
Correct. And the basement itself will be used for
Clubhouse.
clubhouse. Okay.
Are there meals going to be served for the residents there?
No, each home will have a full kitchen and they'll be fully independent. The clubhouse will have some, they'll be able to have large meals, large gatherings and events and whatnot in the clubhouse, but
How many units are in the multi-story building?
27
Okay. And so the majority of them are going to be
in the
in
cottages.
the cottages. Okay.
What's the square footage in each one of these, especially the multi-structure?
It's about 1,000 square feet. and for a one-bedroom home.
And all 105 are rental units, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Owned by one entity maintaining them, that's you guys.
Yep. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And can we ask staff a question at the same point?
Sure.
So, Mr. Robinson, question on the density. So this follows the old, can you explain that? Where,
Absolutely. I was already prepared.
okay,
This application, this applicant submitted the original application a little over a year ago in May. That was just prior to the zoning ordinance changing on the R55 district. Therefore, they were subject to the old district, which still allowed the retirement community with an apartment type setup. That application has remained active. We did give it an updated number for this cycle because it went through a lot of staff review and negotiations as far as from sewer connectivity to actual, some commercial out in the front to access to the property. So it's been a long project under a lot of staff review, but that is why you see a R55 zoning that it does not totally reflect the current ordinance.
Are all these units for sale? There's no rentals?
No, sir. This would be like an independent living deal where you pay on a monthly basis. So they're not for sale. They would be owned by one entity.
That's the whole property. is what you're
But for the commercial out parcel out front, yes, sir.
Again, how many units? I missed that a minute ago. In the
105.
multi-level.
105.
No, I meant, how many in the multi-level?
Oh, 27.
27, okay, thank you.
and one more question for staff, for Mr. Wooten. The sewer, we have sewer on that side of the road, or is it still on the other side currently?
The community will have a pump station, the community will have a pump station to take care of the entire apartment unit. It will go up to a gravity manhole, and from that gravity manhole, it'll go across the street to the pump station that is county maintained on 120.
Any other questions from Planning Commission?
I have another. With an R55, with some of those you have an HOA that kind of works to limit or try to limit the people that are coming in there, keeping them in that 55 and plus. With this being basically a one owner,
Yeah.
and you're doing this in rental, will y'all be handling that through
Yeah.
like an on-site property management type deal to make sure that the people that come in there, the occupants, do fit into that R55 plus?
Yes, sir. There's 3 requirements by law that allows you to discriminate on the basis of age and whether or not you have kitchen. And one of them is the way you advertise. 2 is the end product has to be, 80% or more head of household 55 plus. But the other
Would you do me a
is-
favor and speak into the microphone as best you
Sorry.
can? I know it's shorter than you are.
The other is that you have to enforce policies that keep it that way. So we check IDs and that kind of thing and keep those on file and maintain that age restriction. Otherwise, we get sued by HUD.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant? Board of Commissioners, any questions?
David, on your single-story cottage elevations, they've got 3 garage doors and they got 3 gables. Does that mean that there's 3 units?
Yes, sir.
That's my question. Thank you.
Board of Commissioners, any further questions? Thank you, sir. You can take your seat. You do have time remaining if you need written time for rebuttal for anything that may come up. But is there anyone else here wishing to speak on behalf of this application? Please sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Yes, I'm Joel Larkin with Sam's Larkin and Huff, and I'm pleased to be working with the applicant. I just wanted to, I'm not sure all of you got from his presentation. This property is on what I call Dallas Highway. I know it changes. It's right at the Cobb line. It's sandwiched between Martin's and the Waffle House, two of the finest restaurants we could have. The commercial frontage would be in between, and then the housing project would be behind it. So that gives you an idea where it is. He referenced another project, Hardy Springs. That's right across from Woodstock Furniture Outlet, and that's a project that was one of the first R55s that was zoned in the county, and he developed that site. And I looked at the tax assessor. That's got a value of $35.5 million and generates about $325,000 a year in tax revenue. And because it's owned by one person, there's no senior tax exemptions. So this is it's a residential product, but it acts like a commercial product as far as the way the county benefits from it from a tax standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none. Back to the Planning Commission, we have application 2023-11-Z. There are 3 listed stipulations. Do I have a motion on this application?
I motion to approve with the 3 listed stipulations.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Wicks with the 3 listed stipulations. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Steele. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 4-2 and 1. Do you need me to call those votes out?
Yes.
Those in favor, Mr. Steele, Ms. Fitzgerald, Mr. Aston, Mr. Wicks. Those in opposition, Mr. Leggett, Mr. Henson. The abstention is me. So thank you very much for your time. Is there anything further we need to announce?
I just want to make an announcement. The next month's Planning Commission meeting will be on September the 19th, 1 week earlier.
So
And we're
much
going to
for
have
vacation,
one
right?
application and discussion on updates to our comp plan.
All right. So hearing that, is there anything else further? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Leggett. And a second? Second from Mr. Steele. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Everybody have a wonderful month.